and touch on some of the finer points of the programming that you'll need for the final exam. So next week, we'll log in. I'll make the final exam available and pretty much have all morning to do it and turn it in. I know that some of you will have issues with access to a copier or something like that. And if that's an issue, just let me know. Yeah, send me an email or a text or something. So the final exam again is going to be a drawing that I'm going to give you, and you'll just write a program in Notepad and email it to me when you're done, or you can take a picture of it. I'd rather have an email if possible. With the Notepad file is the preferred option. So the first thing we'll review is just the simple G71 cycle, and we'll also review turning a radius, because that's going to be a thing. That information is going to be, it's going to be open book, open source. And if you've been doing the, following along with the programming labs and things like that, you shouldn't have too much trouble with this. But it will test your skills, which is what the final is supposed to do. So the couple of elements of the project are in the old Haas programming workbook that we started with in the CNC lathe class. And my mouse is giving me fits, so I'm just going to put it in scroll mode here, which is not working. So I'll just have to. All right. Oh, there we go. So what I'm pretty much talking about is this G71, G70 roughing and finishing with an OD, and there will be a part off as well. So let's go to page 86. Oh, great. It's not doing what I thought. 86 is going to be like 92 on the ribbon bar. So you can pretty much just copy and paste this example onto your notepad file and just change the geometry. I would just recommend doing it with just one tool. This is an example of roughing and finishing with a rough tool and a finish tool, which is probably what you'd see more in industry, mostly because you want your finish tool to last as long as possible. So of course, you can't see the geometry on the final because I haven't shown that to you yet, but it's going to be the same format. You can use everything up to, I'd say, pretty much this point here is going to be the same. And maybe I'll just use my arrow keys. There we go. And everything at the end of it is also going to be the same, except for it won't be M30, obviously, because that's program end. But as far as this G70, all this, it can be the same. What will change will be your geometry. So you'll wrap it down to the front of the part in the clearance on X and Z, and use the same G71 cycle. And a lot of times this doesn't change too much because it just pretty much calling out the can cycle, the line numbers that you want your geometry to fall under. U is how much to leave in X, W is how much to leave in Z, D is your value of how much you're going to take when you're turning your material off. See who all is popping in. Chris, Sam, and Blake. Awesome. Just kind of going to Blake was in my mill class on Thursday, so we're going to do pretty much the same thing, just review for the things you'll need to know for the final, which is going to be a drawing. So most of you should be really familiar with this OD turn cycle. Pretty much changing the geometry in the middle here. You will have to turn a radius. And if you remember right, you have an option to do automatic chamfering and radiusing. If you choose to use the G71 cycle, which is what I would recommend, you don't have to. You can do it. You can use automatic chamfering and radiusing. You won't be able to use automatic chamfering and radiusing with the G71 cycle because it does not work. It will throw a non-monotonous code. So as far as turning radiuses, just want to remind you that this move, this R move, R125, remember the R move has to be a positive value, and it almost always is on a lathe. Anything over 180 degrees on a radius is going to be a minus. So I don't know when you would ever do that on a lathe, because if you think about it, the radius is always going to pretty much be on this side of the center line. You'll never actually go 180 degrees over center. So this R will almost always be a plus. The G2 or G3 rule pretty much stays the same. G2 for counterclockwise or clockwise, and G3 for counterclockwise. And most of the time on an OD, you're going to be a G3. If you're turning an internal fillet like this one, it's going to be a G2. But notice they're cutting a 125 radius here, which would be probably this radius right here is what they're cutting. So to cut the 125 radius, you're going to have to double the X. So they're feeding to X 0.750, and the target point or the end point of the radius is X 1.0, which is basically 0.750 plus 0.125. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, 0.750 plus 0.125, and plus another 125 on the other side of the part. So even though we're at Z, let's see, Z minus 375 to Z minus 0.5 is 0.125, just like the radius, but the X is doubled because of the diameter issue there. Does anyone have any questions about the G71 roughing turning cycle? Nope. And also, and I'll probably mention this more than once. Maybe I'll just wait till we're towards the end. I wanted to talk about the upcoming voluntary lab time. So far, I have 3 people down for that. If you want to do that, you will have to give me your name. I mean, if for some reason you can't make it, it's not like we're going to take you to voluntary lab jail. But what it is, it's just a time where you can come in. I know that the people who want to do it won't particularly need points, probably, but there's not going to be any extra points added as a result of the lab time. In other words, it's not a requirement. If you're turning in all your homework and turning in all your programs, you're going to be just fine. There won't be a lab requirement. The way they had it structured was for certain classes like, say, nursing that have mandatory lab requirement hours. They are saying, yeah, it's voluntary, but if you don't show up, you're going to get it incomplete and you'll have to finish it next fall. But so I talked to Mike Klein, the division chair, and I said, well, we're pretty much meeting our objectives mainly because we had the first uh, 8 weeks in the lab, and this hasn't been ideal, but I do think we are meeting the expected student outcomes, um, especially for people who are actively doing the work and engaging in the class. So it's a drag that we didn't get the hands-on lab time, and because of that, I'm volunteering my time to go down there the week after next week. So it's going to be May 14th, Thursday night, May 14th, and Saturday the 16th. Let me just double check my calendar here. Oh well, it's on the announcement that I posted. So all the details about that are in this letter. The thing is, you will have to wear a mask, and they have specific guidelines for social distancing. And it says in here that if you don't have a mask, I will make sure you get one. I'm not sure how that happens, but in other words, I didn't write this letter. I did alter it to not reflect the mandatory elements of it, which is kind of laid out. So if you're interested, shoot me an email. And like so far, I've got just 3 people, so you could actually attend the Thursday and the Saturday lab time if you want to maybe come down there and make a ball bat or something. I don't know if you can get it done in that short amount of time, but there's also next semester. Looks like I've got scheduled to be down there on Thursday and Friday and Saturday for the first 8 weeks because they're trying to get everything done in 8 weeks next semester, which is going to be brutal, but that would be an opportunity for you to come in and finish your ball bat if you want to. So just don't leave anything in your locker. Okay. That'd also be a good time, like if you had some stuff in your locker that you didn't get an opportunity to clear out, if you wanted to come down and do that as well, it'd be a good time to do it. So anyway, back down to our review here. And I bumped myself out of the thing. Bear with me. Let's see, programming workbook. So the other thing we'll be looking at, as far as the turning is concerned, is the cutoff. And I would recommend just really, could probably just look at some of your programming examples. Most of you are pretty good at programming the turning stuff. So let's see. Another thing is on the program final. Wow, that's the wrong thing. Workbook. You'll have to do threading on the project. It's kind of an all-encompassing part, and we'll just review that. And it's a dual lead thread of all things. And I think that you guys that are in class today have already turned in your dual lead thread program, so you can use that for an example. I don't know why this is loading so slow. I'll try open it in a new tab and see if it opens faster. Yep. Don't know why. So we're on page, we're looking at the 92. So that's your roughing. That's how the program will start. So if you want to review that this week, or if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. And let's just go back to the table of contents. And again, I have not replaced my mouse. It's still acting squirrely. So this book is set up in order of G codes. So if you're wondering, where something is, like G1 is way up here. But for the threading, you can use the G76 if you want, which I'm less familiar with, or you can use the G92 thread cycle, which isn't really listed right here. What was G92? So these are all in order. G76, one thing I don't like about G76 is that you have to remember a lot of rules about it. So let's have a look at that real quick. 117 plus 8 would be 125. Yep. So this is the exercise. It's probably been a while since any of you have done this. So with the G76, you need these charts. That's why I don't really recommend using it. The nice thing about G76 is you can do the threading in one line. So the K, I have to review this myself because I'm more of a mill guy. So the K is going to be your height of your thread, which is shown in this chart, this picture. And the height of the thread is defined as the distance from the crest of the thread to the root. So that's all on a chart. The depth of the first cut is specified in D, which is shown. I'm kind of a visual guy, so each depth, your D. And so that's kind of like blah, blah, blah. W, this is incremental for Z. Your thread angle has always been kind of confusing to me. I believe this is represented by A. I think this is as it comes in to cut the thread that you would be cutting on the leading edge of the insert. They say when in doubt, leave it at 0. But I think that makes it feed straight in. I've done a little research on that, and I haven't come up with a real super clear explanation for that. But you know, with this diagram here, it kind of shows that it's the angle is it moving in. So you'd think it'd be 29.5 degrees. But I've not played with it a lot, so it's one of those things that, you know, you can tinker around with it someday if you have access to a lathe. Also, Brady said that they have not got the Akumas hooked up yet. That was a week ago that I had asked him, so I'm assuming it's still not done. So if you want to use G92, which is a little easier. Somebody flushing the toilet?
No.
Oh, hey, Robert. How's it going, man?
Hey.
Feeling better?
Oh, good. Going good. Yeah.
Good deal. We're just kind of reviewing for the final today, so I doubt we'll go the whole 2 hours. And quite a few of you still need to turn in a fair amount of homework, so it'll be a nice for if you've got all your stuff turned in, there's not going to be any new point requirements. Oh, that one finally came up. So just kind of reviewing. G92 is a threading cycle that I like to use. Mainly, it's more code, but it's a lot less rules. So let's review that real quick. Thread cutting. So you have G76 or G92 for the dual lead threads on the final. So we've got turning, OD turning with the radius, and we're up to threading, which will all be on the. Here we go. So G92. Keep forgetting my mouse is not super whippy today. You'd think I'd get that fixed, but you know you can only buy stuff by ordering it online right now. And it takes forever and a century to get anything delivered. Anyway. Okay, so there's that. Maybe G92 is right after. This is a thread chart. If you're going to use the G73 cycle, your threads per inch, which I don't know how that works on a dual lead, because if we had the 5/8 18, it would be 2 rows of 9 threads per inch, but technically it's 18 threads per inch. So I think, I'm not positive, that you would look at this chart, look at the 18, because that's going to be your representative of what your actual thread height is going to be. So the K value for if you were going to do a 5/8 18, which is not what it is on the final, by the way, would be K.034 for an OD thread and 0.030 for an ID thread. And the reason for that is because ID threads have a little bit of a different value than OD threads, because they have to. Because if you had a 1-to-1 fit, then you'd have a pretty tight thread. So that'd be your K value. And then there's another chart on down here. That's kind of what the pain is about that. G76 is all these charts and things that you're kind of a slave to. So, like if you're doing 3 passes at 18 threads per inch, this 0.0129 would be, go back to G76 here, would be your not real sure what that is. I know it plugs into the formula. Anyone know off the top of their head?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so just use G92. Let's see. XDU would probably be your D, or your depth of cut. And so, no, D is first pass cutting depth. I don't know. That's why I use G92. Let's look for that. G92, M24, and M25, or M23. We can talk about that. There it is. Thread cutting cycle. This is a lot easier because all you have to do is position your threading tool at the front of your part. Use your G92, and what that does is if you're in single block mode, it will take a pass and then retract to your start point. And then for each additional pass, you just have to plug in what the next X value is. And like they're taking 5 at a time until they get down to the target dimension in X. Now the only difference also is they have an F value here. This is your thread pitch. So if you're doing say a 3/4 10, it's just as simple as 1 divided by 10. That's going to be your F value. I've also seen this entered in code as an E value. So E or F will work there. And so this is a lot easier and less complicated. M23 is automatic chamfering off. M24 is automatic chamfering off. The difference is with M23, you will see a ring around this last thread. With M24, sorry, with automatic chamfering off, you'll see a ring around this last thread, which is going to really make your thread weaker, because it's going to that last thread is going to go all the way around the part. With M23, you will see where the last thread terminates. So that's probably your more desired way of cutting the thread, is with M23 on. Okay, so that would be threading. Let's see who else popped in here.
Jalali.
Hey, Jalali. I didn't grade your homework yet. I'll do that after school today. So we're reviewing for the finals. So far we've covered OD turn and threading, which is there's going to be dual lead threads on your final part. Obviously, we're not going to actually cut the part, which I never do because there's just not enough time and machinery to actually cut the part, which it would be fun, but more responsibilities. And then as far as the cutoff goes, again, I would recommend just kind of looking at your um, homework that we've been working on in class. This is recorded, so if you missed the first part of it, I'll post it after school today, and you'll have access to it. What is that sound? Okay, so I'm going to move into the live tooling manual because obviously there's live tooling on the final as well. And we're just going to kind of review the will be some C-axis milling, and there's going to be some Y-axis drilling. If you have your homework, or there's also this live tooling manual that's really handy to. There we go. My mouse wheel is really acting up, so like when I try to scroll up, it actually scrolls down. Not fun. So I'll just use my arrow key here. Fortunately, this book is pretty small, but it covers everything. There's not going to be any polar milling on the final, so that project is the extent of the project we did last week is the extent of what you need to accomplish there. Back in the old days when we were actually able to set up the machine, kind of like a day through memory lane here.
Yeah.
Touching off tools. I think most of you could get back into the groove of doing that if you had the opportunity without too much trouble. Again, you'll be able to use your book, obviously, for the programming final. I will log in the morning next week and turn it on and greet whoever's there. Basically, you'll just log on and do your final, and then send me the
finals next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Another thing is, I think they changed the like I'm required to submit grades by a certain date usually. And I think they moved that up to May 24th. So next week, they basically extended the semester by a couple weeks.
So about the lab?
The lab is going to be on May. Let me see if I can. There's an announcement at the top of the announcements that kind of describes all that. I'll go over that one more time, last thing, and that way people that were here for it don't have to listen to it twice. But here's all your cheat sheet for your can cycles. And I would, you can refer to this. The best thing to do in my book, in my mind, is find an example in the book of what you're wanting to achieve. So if you're wanting to drill face holes, this is not a great example because it's a little different than what we are doing. So I would recommend going on down to this live tapping. I mean, I guess this is the face 19 P120. That's a little different than what we've been doing, but I have had students use this, and I was kind of confused by it because I don't think there's any face drilling on the final. There's side drilling and some face milling, but not polar milling. These are some great examples. So live tooling, don't let it intimidate you because it's really not much to it. You got tool 303 calls up your tool. M19 is I'd have to get my cheat sheet out here. Let me get my M codes. I think it's definitely got something to do with yeah, M19 is orient spindle. It's just kind of like if you don't use these codes every day, you're not going to remember them. That's
Right.
why we don't really do a midterm with memorizing codes in this class because they're so different for every machine tool builder. Whereas the lathe codes, they're a little bit more, typical. But most machine tool builders have pretty different live tooling codes. So you're positioning your part a half inch in front of it, rapid to X. So your X, Y, and Z doesn't change. You're basically just telling it to go there. G133, P1500. I'm not sure what that G133 is, actually. Must have something to do with the feeding or something. I'd say it's turning the spindle on, but usually we use a
Yeah.
M13 for that.
This- Isn't that turning on the axial
I don't
spindle?
think so. M13, G133. Yeah,
Yep.
not getting a lot on that. You see if I open this in a different. And control F it. It should explain it in the book. It's not going to really be on the final, so it's kind of a mute point at this point. I'm curious of what that is because I've not seen that before. G1330. I think that might be a typo, actually. G133. So anyway, G98 turns it into inches per minute instead of inches per rev, and linear interpolation of 10 inches a minute feeding into the face. And then this G5, that's also kind of an oddball code. It has something to do with there's a fine spindle control. I'm surprised it said it couldn't find it because it's clearly in the book.
Yeah.
G133. You know what I mean? It's clearly there. That G5. So that's in
There's
there.
not an L.
Huh?
Not an L in your search box.
An L?
Looks like an L.
Oh,
Yeah, looks like an L.
it's a G5.
Well,
It's picking up G54, every G5. This is like, yeah, fine spindle control. This is going to be for older lathes, so it would not really apply. This code is optional and is used for live tooling on older machines, so does not apply. So it's not a great example. But since they're turning with the C axis, that's why they turned on the G5, and we didn't really go into that too much. But at any rate, they are just R90, F40. That has something to do with the fine spindle control. And here's example 2. Yeah, let's just skip over that because it's not really applicable to what we're doing. Okay, this is actually more what we were doing. So you would just M133, P2000, turns on your spindle. So I think that was a typo because it should have been, instead of G133, I think it should have been M133. I think we've all seen plenty of typos in academic manuals and books. unfortunately. So G18 is XY plane or ZX plane, and rapid G54 is our work coordinate position. Turn on your live tooling, engage C axis, zero out C, turn it into inches per minute. Now this book does a lot of repetitive codes. Like since it's already in G0, you wouldn't technically need that here. I'm not real sure why they do that. So just feeding into Z 1 inch minus or 100 thousandths, and then simply telling C to go 90 degrees will cut this little quadrant in the front. So that's pretty simple. And then here's an example of feeding in X. They're going to rotate about C and then feed out in X. That was going to be a project that we never really got to. I don't think we finished that outside contour on the C axis or YC project either. So it would be kind of the same thing, except you would come in X, feed in Z, and then just rotate about C and then feed out. If you remember the YC project. YC project that we were working on. I think we finished that up last week, but we never did finish the the slot on the outside. So that's a good example. If you have any kind of face milling to do, which is probably not on the final. So we'll skip over some of this. This page was intentionally left blank. Cartesian to polar milling is what we kind of did last week, if you were here for that. If not, the whole class is recorded, or I can just answer your questions that you might have. This would be milling as a pocket with G112. We kind of talked about this last week. Again, not on the final. But if you have a Y C-axis lathe at your shop that no one's using because they don't know how to use it, you can really make a lot of different parts on your live tooling lathe. You're just really limited by the size of your tooling, how many tools you can fit in there, and beyond that, the sky's the limit because you can get Mastercam to do surface tool paths. What I had to do is convert my X and Y moves to X and Z moves to do that, which is easy to do in the editor because you can just change them all at once. All your X's to Z's and okay, this will apply to the final. So this mark your page number. I'm trying to do this without being jerky with the mouse. Page number 29 in your live tooling book. So there will be some hole drilling with the live tooling. Just review it real quick. Tool 101 is calling out the tool. G19 is only used on cross working cycles. And that's on your cheat sheet on page 12 is your G code cheat sheet. Page 9 is your M code cheat sheet. And there's a couple of G codes on that page as well. So M154, engage C-axis, rapid to position. And Z.250. So now it rapids to Z minus 750. They don't really have a drawing of what it's doing. So this is basically the format that you will use to drill a hole. So you can, I don't think this lets you copy and paste, but you can use this example on the final and just simply change the geometry. I will say if you have a hole that you're drilling that goes all the way through, it is sometimes wise to drill it halfway through on one side and then go 180 degrees and drill it halfway, the rest of the other half of the way through from the other side. Because what will happen is, and I've seen it, is this drill is going to crawl off center by the time it gets to the other side. So anytime I have a fourth axis and I have the ability to drill a hole from both sides and meet in the middle, I will do it because it's going to be more accurate. Now, the bad thing is sometimes you'll have a little mismatch in the middle because drills will crawl. Even a brand new, freshly sharpened drill will crawl off center while it's drilling. Hey, Mike Bell, how are you today? All right, back to, let's see, I got this open in two different windows. So this is going to be really applicable to your final exam next week. If you do have any questions, really even during the test, I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to program the part, but maybe I can, if you're totally derailed and spinning your wheels, I'll try to help you get back on track. Because it's really, even the final to me is an opportunity to still learn. This radial drilling, now what's the difference between radial drilling here and radial drilling here? Not much. Here, I think they're using a Y value. So this is also going to be applicable to the final. You'll have one hole on center, and there are some holes that are off center. So page 29 and 30 are your programming examples for that. And this is just different examples with a 5-second dwell. That's that P.5. I thought there was a G code for dwell. I'm not seeing one. G242.
What pages were those?
29 and 30. So these two will be very helpful for you to use on the final next week. Pretty much have all morning to do it. I'll turn it on at 8 or make it visible. Because actually the final is right here on my machine. All I have to do is make it visible. There is some face milling, but it's not going to be polar milling. So, see about that example for that. Didn't really have a really great example, other than maybe we'll find one on down the line. Face milling. I would say this example is probably your most close example as far as your beginning and end codes, which will be the same for everything on certain operations, obviously. All your cross cycles are going to have the same start and end. And there's not going to be any trigonometry or anything like that. I know there was some trig on the last assignment. I had to actually go through and do that myself because I didn't have a cheat sheet on it. Like, hey, wait, that's kind of a pain. So this page, 29, 30, and if you're just joining us, the G71 and the Haas programming workbook and G92 threading will also be. Now, if you remember when we do OD threads and we're doing dual lead, you'll do one row at half the thread pitch. So say you have a 5/8 18, you'll do one row of 9 thread pitch. Back it up, the actual thread pitch, which would be 1 divided by 18, which is 0.055. and then do another row of 9-thread pitch, and that's what creates the dual lead. And I realized that, we didn't really have a lot of chance to. Usually by this time, everybody's written 3 programs from start to finish, which we didn't get done so much. So I'm going to be, fairly lenient on grading the final. I forget how many points is associated with that in the syllabus. A few. So you definitely want to do it. Let's move on down here. There's really not a whole lot more, honestly. Pec drilling, radial pec drilling. So yeah, this IJK, I think it's the same as on the mill. The I would be your first pec. J would be how much the pec is reduced for each subsequent pec. And the K would be the very smallest value that you'd want it to pec. So if I wanted to, say I was drilling a 1/2 inch or a 1 inch deep hole, I could probably get away with like they've got this set to 250. My first pec, I could get away with a 1/4 inch deep pec. And then the deeper I go, the more I want it to pec because it will need coolant and to break the chips more often. So the first pec could be 0.250, the second pec could be 0.2, the third pec could be 0.150, fourth pec could be 8.1, but would never get less than 0.1 because the K is set to limit that from going less than 0.1. So I really like the IJK thing for drill cycles because it could be a real time saver on production. But I've only seen Haas allow you to do that. So in other words, you can't do this on your Mori or your Akuma or your Mazak or your. So tapping, I don't think there's any tapping. Looking at the drawing right now. Yeah, no tapping. Kind of surprised, but.
No tapping on the final?
Huh?
No tapping on the final?
I don't think there's tapping on the final. There's threading, though.
Good.
Well, if there were even, it's not that hard. It's the same as drilling. You just give it a different G code, G195. So the idea here is that you don't have to remember all these codes, but you have to know where to find them if you need them. So, by the way, you're free to download all these books and manuals. I'll leave the Blackboard up long after. I mean, I pretty much don't turn it off until they blank it out at their leisure. So all the examples that you need for the final are in the book. Is anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Questions about programming? Questions about homework? We'll keep it short this morning. Talk a little bit more about the up and coming voluntary lab time. If you'd like to come down, and not next week, but the week after, this is the sort of a blanket letter that they gave me to pretty much sign and post. So most of it is regarding the information about when we're going to be there or when I'm going to be there. If you want to be involved in this, you need to let me know and I will submit your name. There's only going to be one entrance open. I'm guessing that the campus center main entrance is the opposite of what we usually go in through. So that's where the student services is and all that. There will be
Over by the offices?
the fishbowl or whatever.
Okay.
there will be an officer there, and you will be required to wear a mask. They'll probably take your temperature, and you'll have to sign a health waiver. So, but here are the days. So I've only got 3 people written down for all, for both classes, basically. So, as far as it stands now, you're welcome to do Thursday and Saturday if you want. And if for some reason it gets canceled or something, I'll definitely let the people know that I'll post it for one thing, but I just feel like a lot of people don't read the announcements and things on Blackboard. If you're a student at MCC, you really should install the Blackboard app on your phone, and that way you'll get any kind of updates or things like that come up, and you'll be in the know. So that's pretty much what
So
I
if
have.
this
Huh?
if this lab is after the final, what is its function?
Its function is to, I feel like you guys got kind of slighted as far as lab time, but I didn't want to put a
Uh-huh.
requirement on it because there's a lot of attitudes and opinions about the whole coronavirus right now. So
Right.
the way it was set up was for classes that had mandatory lab for certifications. The reason I'm not making it mandatory
Okay.
is because we had 8 weeks of lab time up front. And while that
Uh-huh.
probably isn't sufficient, I think it meets our expected student outcomes. And I don't think anyone here really wants to be required to do more lab time at this point with everything that's been going on this semester. But there are a few people that are interested in coming down and getting their hands on the machines. So, I mean, I'm willing to go down there 1 week after the final and pretty much volunteering to go down there, and just like you would be. So,
Hmm.
um, I just wanted to make that an option, but not a requirement. Keep it fair for everyone, and
How's
I think that
is that going to affect our grade?
no,
I see.
I will
So this
say
is
that
just hands-on experience.
if you're not doing well with the programming and you feel like, well, maybe if I had had hands-on time with the machinery, I would have a better grade. I would
Hmm.
definitely throw some points your way for coming down and getting some work done on the machine tool. But that said, if you're getting all your homework turned in and you don't need to worry about, there's not going to be added points. But for me to say no, you won't get any points for coming down there. If you're having trouble with the programming, that can also be one-on-one time there. I don't think I have to
Hmm.
submit grades till like the 24th. So
Okay.
I actually have you for going down there as per our conversation. So if you happen to not show up, that's fine too. Um, but I have to submit everybody's name to Mike Klein, and that way they have a list of people who are supposed to be on campus or not. And if your name's not on that list, you're not going to get in. And the way to get on the
Oh.
list is just to tell me that you're planning on attending one of those days. And since there's only 3 people, including you, I'll I mean, you can attend both days or one day, or so that's kind of how that works.
Okay.
So does anybody else have any other questions? I didn't want to put any more homework on you guys because I think we've covered all the curriculum. And if you get turned in what we put out there, then we'll be in good shape. My wife's being a clown right now. She's a distraction, a pleasant distraction, I must say. Yeah, I have to add that. So I mean, I'm Shannon. I can't focus when she's here. So if anyone, I'm available for questions. I know that we didn't spend 80 hours on this. I tried to make it to where, we had 2 hours of class and, close to 2 hours worth of programming lab every week. And because it is a 4 credit class, and that's a lot of college credits. But also I realize that everybody's been through a lot this semester with, getting sick, job issues, and it's just been, unprecedented time for
Right.
everyone. So I am available, as most of anytime that I'm not at work, because there's nothing else to do but work and be home.
Right.
So yeah, if you're remotely interested in doing lab time, shoot me an email or a text, and I'll put your name down with Mike Klein, and can definitely throw some points your way for that if programming's not your thing, because that really is the hands-on is a big part of the class. But I also don't want to pressure anyone into going down to the lab for fear of getting sick. But you'll have to wear a mask and maintain social distancing. They'll take your temperature with a little thing they point at your head. They've been taking my temperature.
Do we have to provide our own? Do we have
Uh,
to provide our own mask?
it says that you don't. In fact, it says that all fact wear masks or face coverings and practice social distance. If you do not have a mask, please let me know and I'll arrange for one to be provided for you. So there's that, but I don't know what that means. If you don't have a mask, I mean, I will let the higher ups know. It'd be best to know in advance. It's hard to find a mask right now. I bought 6 pretty decent ones from Amazon. It took like a month to get here.
Oh wow!
And they're cloth, and I pretty much just wear them if I'm going to go to the grocery store. And I like them a lot, and so I was going to order 6 more of them, and they're out of stock.
Wow.
Yeah. But the other thing you can do is there's a lot of videos on YouTube about making your own mask. You can take a bandana and roll and kind of sort of fold it into thirds, and then just put ponytail holders or rubber bands on either side, and fold it inside itself, and then that works really good too. I've done that. I don't like wearing masks, but also if that's what it takes to prevent this thing from spreading, then it's a pretty small price to pay. It is going to make it a little challenging to communicate, though. And I went to the store yesterday, and it's like, and I was happy to see it. All the the workers at the store were wearing masks. And for some reason, when you're wearing a mask, you feel a little bit of anxiety. And you can really tell. It's hard to, communicate.
Yeah.
So don't forget to fill out your student questionnaires about the class. And just, it's been a real different experience, going to online teaching.
Yeah. Is that in Pipeport?